All right, guys, we're starting a new video segment. It's called Beating a Dead Horse. We're going to talk about CCVs again. About a month or so ago, we did a nice video on a breakdown between the 23 and up CCV, our recirculating kit that we make already, and a comparison. And we also did like a nice deep dive in the inspection process of the 23 plus non-maintenanceable CCV. What we want to do today is a non-cut up edit and just walk you through our process. Before we dive into this, we're going to talk about what we're going to show you, and we're also going to talk about what's been happening in the market after we did the video. So after we put that video out initially, we had a couple people do more testing on YouTube, and they came up with their conclusions. And one in particular, Technician Red, did a cool YouTube video on just all the different CCV boxes, including ours. So we got to see in his test scenario what ours flowed against the factory stuff, and it was actually a pretty good outcome. And if you guys want to check that video out, you can, but we're going to give you the actual scientific way to go about doing it and what we do in our development process. One of the things that he said about our kit was he didn't like the zip ties to seal the hoses. We do a nice beefy, heavy nylon zip tie. We took that, we listened, and we had a couple other customers that didn't like that as well. So we are now including stainless steel clamps in that to just make the kit a little bit better. So we're including those now. We didn't change the cost of the kit, and we're just always listening to you guys and listening, taking constructive criticism pretty well. What we're gonna do today is we're gonna walk you through each step that we did in our development process for our recirculating CCV, and essentially show you what the outcome is going from CFD, from a design process and CAD to walking into a real world scenario where we're actually using a flow bench. So, one of the biggest things with the CCV is obviously we're worried about filtration, and the process of filtering always has pressure drop. So if you're doing it correctly and you're really getting to the point of filtration, at some point you're going to have some kind of pressure drop. You can baffle without pressure drop, but once you start putting an element in the system, whether it's a stainless screen, a paper filter, whatever it may be, you're always going to have some kind of pressure drop across that filter. Anytime pressure drop's occurring, you're more than likely causing a filtration process. We know the box's filter. We know that the factory box filter's okay. We know that ours filter's okay. So the biggest thing that we want to show today is flow. The big conundrum with all this is the fact that people are worried about, okay, well, what kind of flow am I getting going from a factory box to your box? Or is yours flowing as good as the factory box? Is it not flowing as good as the factory box? Etc. So that's something we want to touch on today. We're going to show you a very calibrated process and show you each step that we go through, and we already went through with our product. But the cool thing is we baseline a lot of the way, and a lot of the time that we're doing these things, we're baselining factory products and also our test scenarios. So behind me here, we have an adapter plate, which I'm actually going to pull this off real quick and show you guys what it is and how this works so that you guys understand. But this is some of the stuff that we really don't show on camera because we normally are trying to keep some trade secrets, because that's what makes our products. And that's what really helps us develop things, and we're not always trying to help other companies develop stuff that compete with us. So this is a lot of what we go through. So this is a nice solid printed 3D adapter plate. This is a grommet that we actually use in our piping kits that has it's essentially the adapter point for the inlet tube of the turbo. So it's a nice calibrated feature there. We have a nice taper to the actual grommet, and we have a 4-inch bore and a cylinder head plate here. So this is kind of irrelevant, but it's a nice transfer into the machine, so that's why we like to work with that. So nothing crazy here. It's very simple. It's a simplistic thing, but it gives us a nice way to calibrate what we're working with, because this port's really simulating essentially hose ports, hose diameters. It's about a 1-inch port here that steps down. So we're going to go ahead and throw this on. And what we'll do, we'll start by flowing this base plate. So we'll throw this base plate on, snug it down. We're going to have to adjust the flow ranges based upon what we're actually flowing. And we have a general number that we already know that these things sit at, so we can get an accurate reading. So the main thing is today, we want to show you guys what this stuff actually flows and what you're getting. When you purchase our recirculating kit, which what we're referring to is this kit in particular, it is a baffle network with a stainless screen in it. And that is this is the highest point of restriction in this. You obviously have a baffle network to separate the oil from the air vapor. And then you have your actual screen as kind of your last line of defense there. But that is your pressure drop point in this system. So essentially what this is it's a O-ringed baffle there. And when you put the clamshell half on, it seals up with an O-ring and a singular bolt. So we're not going to walk back through what this product actually is. We'll have a link in the description if you want to check our stuff out. But the main point of this is essentially showing how we got to this point. Some of the testing that we did in the real world. So this is our box that we're going to be factoring with. And then this is the factory box that we're going to be comparing with. So this right now is the most current CCV iteration from Ford, and this would be your 23 and up deal. And it's very popular online. So a lot of people are wanting to run to this for some reason. They feel it's simpler and it's got better flow characteristics than the earlier boxes. We do not agree with that. The actual cartridge that goes inside of this, which is this little filter right here, there's basically a little baffle network in there, and there is a paper filter with a check valve assembly in this. Some people have pointed out that when this valve is, if say this gets clogged and this valve gets sucked down the whole way, that there is an area in here to bypass. But the thing that you have to think about is with this filter in this box, if you get to the point where this check valve is actually pulled down enough to allow the gap that you need to get the air through it. So let's say your filter's clogged and you have this valve down and you're actually getting to the bypass point of the filter, which the bypass area isn't very large in this. You have to think about the condition of the rest of the box. So this filter's already clogged. Well, if this filter's clogged up with contaminant or saturated to the point of it's not filtering anymore, and it's starting to pull this valve down, there's obviously going to be other stuff in here too. So those tiny little holes that everything was passing through are probably clogged as well. So it's just not a solid option in my opinion. Is it terrible? No, but it's not a great option, which is why we obviously run our stuff and sell our stuff. So, but anyway, we are going to baseline this. We're going to show you what this flows, and then we're going to jump to ours. But first things first though, we're going to flow the base plate so you guys understand what this actual 1-inch hole will flow with nothing attached to it. So we're going to jump into that right now. It's going to be loud. You might want to put turn your headphones down for this. All right, so we're going to dive into this, testing this, basically the flow on this test plate, because we have about a 1-inch bore in this test plate with the grommet. So we're going to get a nice point here to just work from. So obviously this will be the least amount of restriction we'll have in all this testing because it's a starting point for the test. So we're gonna try to test all this stuff at 25 inches of vacuum. Right there. So we're right at 25 inches, and we're flowing about 96 CFM.
Say that one more time.
Yeah, I'll go back over that. So where we are at with this and where we're gonna base our tests, we're gonna have a baseline of about 25 inches of vacuum. So we're gonna pull a vacuum on this. When these systems are operating, when your CCV system is operating correctly, it's gonna be on a truck that's actually pulling a vacuum on it through the turbo system. So it's gonna be pulling a vacuum on the inlet side of the turbo. So the way these are gonna be functioning, they're gonna be functioning and really working efficiently under a vacuum. So we're gonna run vacuum rather than pushing through. So we're gonna run we're running 25 inches of vacuum, and our flow from a baseline there, we'll write it down. We were at exactly 96 CFM for our 1 inch bore. So our 1 inch bore was 96 at 25 inches of vacuum. Okay, so now we have our base. So what we're gonna do is, this is a adapter that we sell for our piping kits, which has the factory connector on it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna throw this in that grommet, and then we're actually gonna hook up a factory CCV box. So we'll put this in here, and then we're gonna take the factory box, and it's gonna connect just as it would on the truck. Just like that. And then what we'll do is we'll pull a vacuum through this box. So we know where this is actually gonna sit CFM wise, so I'm gonna make some quick adjustments here to make sure that we're in the right ranges. And then we're gonna go ahead and flow this. I'm gonna have to adjust this so that I can actually hit the proper vacuum amount. So we're over vacuum right now. We're actually pulling 26, 27. So I'm gonna have to back this off just a little bit. Gotta give it time to stabilize too. We're dropping down, still at about 27. Yep. Almost there. And this thing's all over the place. It seems to be, even with the vacuum change, we're still sitting around about 30 CFM. Because if I keep backing the vacuum off, it's actually going to go down. So it's pretty solid around 30 CFM. But we're pretty stable there. We're really close. So call it 30, about 30 to 31. So we'll even go to the high side and call it 31 CFM. So just so everybody knows, there are obviously in your box on the truck, you have two main ports in the valve cover. So in your valve cover on your truck, where your main pressure feed out of the crankcase would be this one. This is your drain back. So anything that's collecting in this for oil is able, when the truck is off and there's no pressure on it, it's able to actually drain back through one of these holes. There's a check valve in here, but when there is a suction on this tube, this is actually pulled up and it's actually able to suck through here. So there is a vent, there is one vent hole here that allows the air to actually pass through, because at the end of the day, all those ports lead back to the crankcase. So it's more of a drain back thing. When this box is no longer in operation, when the truck's off, the engine's not running, that'll be working that way, and it'll be able to actually drain the oil back to the pan, essentially. Another thing I am going to touch on real quick before we dive into anything else. One of the problems with testing these and comparing products on, say, one individual vehicle, if you're, say, the end user and you want to test these products, or if you are a YouTuber and want to test these products, one of the issues with doing it on, say, your own truck, if you hook a pressure gauge up to the crankcase, that's awesome. Yeah, you can hook it up and you can find exactly what may be working best in your scenario. It's relative to your engine at that point, because the problem lies within the fact that the problem with doing it that way, to just test the product by itself rather than testing your situation, is if you have wear on the engine, it's going to vary between all trucks. You know, if you have a brand new truck that doesn't have the ring seated yet, it's going to have a different crankcase volume than, say, a truck that does have the ring seated, or a truck with 500,000 miles on it versus a truck with 10,000 miles on it. So yes, you can test them on the vehicle, which we do as well, but the problem is there's way too many variables there to baseline the product off of it. So the main things that we're concerned with when developing something like this is we're concerned with overall flow, pressure drops, the actual separation of the oil out of the vapor. Those are all the things that we're mostly concerned with, which when we're concerned with that, we have to be concerned with the physical product we're designing. We can't take into account every single vehicle that's going on. It's just impossible. So just as a disclaimer, you know, we want to get that out of the way. It's not necessarily a bad way to test, putting it on an engine and physically checking crankcase back pressure. That's fine. But you're checking the crankcase back pressure on that specific engine. You know, so just keep that in mind when you're watching other people testing, or you're watching, you know, something maybe you're testing, or you're taking that information. Just know that. So, all right, so we're baselining. We're gonna call that, we're gonna go on the high side. We're gonna baseline the factory one at 31 CFM, which initially, I believe on the very first box that we did that had never been ran for a 23, I want to say it was about 33 in that ballpark. So we're right there. It's about the same. All right, so now we're going to take this back off using the same adapter. We're going to actually put ours on with an out of the box screen. So we're going to show you this real quick, so that there's no confusion. Nobody thinks that we're screwing around with anything. So this is essentially the guts of this. And there is a screen that drops in here. There's a little tab on the edge of the screen so that you can easily remove it with a screwdriver to clean it. And there's two different micron levels of screen on here. There's two different pieces of screen. You have a finer screen and a coarser screen on the main side, where it starts flowing through. So we just want to show you that that's a new filter, and we're going to get into the used filter here as well. So don't get mad and comment now and say, oh, but you're not checking one with a couple thousand miles on it. We're going to get into that. So just wanted to show you it's a clean filter. We're going to throw it on. It's a new one. We're going to bolt this back together here, and then throw the hose on and do the same exact test we just did. All right. And then we're actually going to put the hose clamps on too, because that's what we're doing on the trucks now. And we'll make sure we're signifying what we're doing with the kits. Okay. Put that red bin. All right, so same scenario. What we're doing here is, once again, we're drawing through our box just as we did on the other one. I'm actually going to twist this and face it this way so you can see the drain back on ours. So just to also show you that ours does the same thing as factory, put it like that for now. So I'll show you it this way for now. We also have the drain back holes. So being that, as I just showed you, being that when the truck's off, nothing's going on, there's no pressure in the system, there's no vacuum on it, anything that's collecting from the baffle network and or the screen baffle side, they actually have individual drains per side. And it functions just like factory. So these will obviously, more pulling through this box, these obviously need to remain open because that's how they're functioning on the truck. So let's go ahead and fire this up. Get a good look at that. Is that in the way? Are you good? Okay. All right. So we're still cruising along here. All right, we're going to fire this up. Like I said, we are going to have to adjust to actually get the proper vacuum because we have to set the test pressure so that they're all the same. All right, so we're right around, let's call it 52. See if that'll stabilize. Yeah, right around about 52 CFM at 25 inches. So that's overall flow. So you take it out of the box and bolt it on the truck. That's what that flows. So now we have a physical number to baseline that off of. So let's recap here. So on the 1-inch bore, we're flowing about 96 CFM. So we were at 52 on ours. And that's with a brand new box, brand new screen. And then on the 24, we're hovering around 31 CFM. So let's just call that about a 20 CFM gain. So you're looking at, which in this scenario, when you're starting with a base number of 96, 20 CFM is massive. So that's quite a jump. So we're going from 31 to 52, it's damn near 20 CFM. So that gives us a nice way to gauge this. Now, here's what we're gonna do, because we already knew this was coming. This is something that we're actually gonna find out with you guys right now that we didn't do in the beginning. So, and we kind of want to know, as well as I'm sure you guys want to know, what happens when that screen starts to clog up. How bad can that screen get clogged and say the truck still breathe on the crankcase side? So what we're going to do is we're going to take a screen, we're going to physically tape it up and block it. We're not going to completely block it, obviously, because we still need to be able to flow through it. But we're going to try to simulate, which we already have one that we started taping here. We're going to try to simulate blockage. So whether you have, carbon deposits that are breaking, which essentially that's what's going to happen to the screen. You're going to have diesel particulate carbon deposit that's going to be carried in that oil vapor. As it passes through here, it's going to get stripped away from the oil. So if this screen clogs, you're going to have deposits and things like that on it that are eventually going to start to physically clog up the mesh. So we're gonna do a worst case scenario. Obviously you guys can see we're taping both sides, which is probably unnecessary, but that's the slot that we have. That's what this is gonna breathe through. So we're gonna start with this and see where it gets us. And then we're gonna neck it down until we actually just go underneath what the factory box flows. And then we're gonna take a look at the filter and re-look at where we're at. So let's pull this off. We're gonna take this off here. Swap this screen out. I'll do it right here so you guys can watch it. Once again, this is essentially how it sits on the truck. So it's going to be on there at an angle like this. So this is how easy it is to say when you do an oil change to just pop this open and check the screen. You do that, you're right to the screen. This hose would actually be attached to this still, so all you would do is just kind of move it up out of the way. And then you take a screwdriver and there's a little notch in here and you just pop the screen out. It's as easy as that. Now we're going to take and put this screen in here, which is obviously very restrictive. Or actually, you know what? We're going to make sure these are the same. Make sure it's nice and taped up. So, got that little bit there. And try to match it the best we can. Bear with me, guys. We're doing this, doing it live. Let's do it live. All right. And then I think it's going to be cool because we're going to try to see, I mean, maybe this is going to flow less. I don't know. This might actually flow less than factory. I don't know. We're going to find it out right now. But we were thinking, let's create a restriction in this, like block off essentially 3/4 of it and just see what happens. And you're watching it with me right now. So there you go. Most of that screen is blocked. So let's see what happens now. See how this works. So plop her back in there, throw the lid back on, and tighten her down. But we thought, what's some of the craziest things we could do to test this? What are people going to want to see? I feel like this is it. So let's see how bad this actually gets. I'm thinking it should be pretty bad. So throw this back on here. Tighten that down a little bit. Okay. All right, let's run it again. This is actually exciting. Let's see what happens. Remember, we got to adjust. Get that CFM right. All right, so we're sitting around 27. We're gonna have to start backing this off a little bit. And you'll notice when you back off the vacuum, normally the CFM will drop because you're not essentially sucking on it as hard. You got to do just little bits at a time because it'll start oscillating. Oh, we're getting close. Would you look at that? We're exactly 31 CFM. 30.9, about 25 inches of vacuum. So what did we just find? So you guys saw me just tape that up, just willy-nilly. Just went and jammed it in there. So that is flowing right now with that much of that screen taped off. We're flowing the same amount as the factory box, identically. So let's see how much we can actually tape off and when it actually drops. So let's actually make it worse. Let's tape off some more of that screen. Here, I'm just gonna flip this around here to save us some time. Let's tape some more of it off. And honestly, the way this looks right now, I would say that's like already at a worst case scenario. Because if it's this clogged, you have a lot of other things going on with that engine. You have a lot of other stuff that is probably causing you problems, and this is probably going to be your least worry. So, but let's pop this off here. Taped one's still in there. Let's go ahead, pop this out. Let's tape it off some more. So obviously it went down, and we already know that it made a difference to tape it. So, because we baselined it. So let's tape it off some more. Let's give it an actual dimension. Let's give it let's say it's about 1/2 inch. Let me see. We'll mic it out.
Should mic out what's equivalent to the other box too, before you add that extra tape.
Okay, yeah. All right, let's mic out what we have. Let's baseline this. So we're about, let's call it 400 thou. So it's about 3/8 by, to the frame, 1 1/4. So we'll call it 3/8 by 1 1/4. And that was given us for blockage 3/8 by 1 1/4, 0.25, gave us 31 CFM. So now let's knock it down to 1/2 inch. So let's tape this off so that we basically have, let's do like 3/8 by 1/2. See how close I can get to that. Yeah, so because we got a frame here, so I'll move that up just slightly. That's good for a mic. Oh, no.
That one sucks anyways.
Yeah, it is a pile of junk. So, all right. All right, there's 1/2 by 3/8, roughly. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. This one's a little bit thinner, but we'll get it close. And guys, just so you know, this is a lot of what we go through. You know, when we're doing products and developing stuff, this is what we go through. This is a lot of the tedious stuff that we do in the development of products. You know, I think there's a misconception with what some companies do. You know, you may look at an overseas company and think, oh yeah, they just came up with that, or they copied it and it works fine, or whatever, and they do no testing. And then you hold that same standard to other companies, and that's not the case. You know, and everybody has a different process. So this is just part of our process. This is just things that we go through. This is why we have the equipment that we have. This is why we own every platform that we own, and why we put in the effort that we put in, because we want to make sure that when you guys question us, we have data, we put in the time where it needed to be put in, so that we can give you a good, reliable, quality product. So this is just a part of that. But this is, you know, a skosh of the amount of time that we'll put into stuff like this. So, all right, 1/2 by 3/8. That is a really, really tiny hole.
That's like, gotta be over 90%.
Yeah, we gotta be at like 90% on this at least. So we're gonna go ahead and give this a shot. The other cool thing about this lid, not to keep plugging the product, but it is our product. The lid has a step in it, so when you do go to put it on, it locks in without the bolt even being tight, which is another really nice feature, because when you're under the hood and you're screwing around trying to get this stuff to all interlock together, it's kind of a pain in the butt. So another nice little added feature. All right, so we're gonna baseline 3/8 by half. Let's give her a shot, see what we get. See if we even feel anything on this. Yeah, there's still a vacuum on there. All right, so we're at 27. We're gonna have to back her off here. Oh, too much. All right, so we're at 22 CFM now. So gives you a nice reference there. So to get down to 22, we had to cover 90% of the screen. And honestly, to get this that bad, you're gonna have a lot of problems with the truck. If it got that bad because you didn't change the oil, then you ruined bearings and everything else in the engine. So during testing, we ran, I would say, well over 50,000 miles, even just on one truck with this exact kit on it. Every time we pulled the cover, there was minimal stuff on the stainless screen. I mean, honestly, you could have not even cleaned it in 50,000 miles. It would have been perfectly fine. But every time we would change oil, pull the single bolt, pop the lid off, spray the screen out with some brake clean, pop it back in. Then you know every time you're going to change oil, it's good, it's clean. You know what you're gonna get every time you go to pop that lid off. You know the state of the screen's gonna be in. You know that it's flowing fine. You know you're not gonna have crankcase pressures. So, or issues with crankcase pressure. So anyway, that is the bulk of what we wanted to do today. So you guys have something, an understanding of, a little bit of what we do with the flow bench. We'll use this on things like this, cylinder heads, tubing, whatever we need to check flow on that seems relevant, we can use this. This one will flow up to about 700. If we run an exhaust side, we can run up to about 787 CFM. They call it a 750 for that reason. So this bench, obviously all the SuperFlow has different levels of benches. So they will cover different CFM/flow rates. So this one caps out about 750. But yeah, so this is just a small part of our process. But I know, with everything else that's out there right now and all these people doing different tests on them and cutting them open and looking at them, why do we not do this with you to begin with? Well, it's in the development process of the product. So it takes a lot of time to set fixtures up, get everything out to do this. It just doesn't really make sense along the way of development. It takes a lot of time. But in this situation where we have a product that people are really interested in it and they really want to know the dynamic of it and what we do and if ours works, if it doesn't work, obviously we want to stand behind that and show to you guys what the actual, what in the actual hell goes on, So this is just a piece of that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I actually enjoyed this because I didn't even know what really truly happened with the screen when we started plugging it up. So we learned together today on that, and you got to see it happen firsthand. This was a non-edited deal. We're just flowing through on this so that you guys can see what's happening. Want to put a shout out to the people who are actually doing testing out there on YouTube. I think you guys should be doing that. Don't take this as like a jab. I actually appreciate the fact that you're running products and doing a nice baseline test. Just keep in mind when you are doing it, especially this on a CCV, when you're doing it on a specific engine, obviously it's relative to that engine essentially, and its wear and everything like that. So, but once again, not bashing you guys. Appreciate the fact that you're actually doing baseline tests and checking stuff and doing things like that. It's super cool. It actually helps us too. So if you guys have input and you want to put that in your video, we try to watch and listen, you know, like the hose clamp thing. That was something you guys didn't like, and we adjusted it, and we don't even charge any more for it. We just want to make the product better so that you guys get what you really want. And we do that with everything that we make. So hopefully you like this. We can do more of this. Let us know in the comments if there's other things that you would like to see and you want us to dive into and show you a little bit of the process. We've been trying to, you know, do a little bit more of these techie videos and a little bit more of the processes that we go through. Like for instance, our Dark Horse videos, you can go check those out. We do some of that stuff with the Mustang. If you want more stuff like that with the trucks, we can do that, not a big deal. Leave it in the comments, let us know. And if you like this content and you want to see more, like it and subscribe, you know, subscribe to the channel. So thanks, we appreciate it, and we'll catch you on the next one.